Before joining the Manson family, Susan Atkins worked as a dancer at various bars using the alias Sharon King. In her book, Child of Satan, Child of God, she stated that she continuously hoped to be discovered by a talent agent. One day, a guest walked in with her boss, a man who was dressed entirely in black. The man turned out to be Anton LaVey, who was producing a witches' Sabbath, and just so happened to be the high priest of the Church of Satan. Susan's boss asked her to dance one more number for LaVey, to which she did. Afterwards, LaVey stated that she would be very good for the vampire role. Susan expressed curiosity about the vampire role, and LaVey told her, "I'm going to produce and direct for your Mr. Garnet a genuine witch's Sabbath, topless and all. And I think it would be fun for you if you're interested." Susan asked what a witch's Sabbath was, and LaVey replied, "It's a time, my dear, when the witches worship their leader, Satan. It's a marvelous ceremony and will be very colorful for your club. It's a bit out of the ordinary." Susan agreed to it, hoping that it would launch her career. A couple of days later, her boss, Mr. Garnet, told her that the selected group for the performance were to go to the LaVey household and be filled in on the witches' Sabbath and black magic. When she asked why, Mr. Garnet said, "It's all part of a Satan worship routine. Everyone has his own hustle going. LaVey's is this Satan thing. He calls himself the high priest of Satan. He's a full-fledged honcho in that stuff. His wife is a full-fledged witch. They have a Satan church in their home. It's a big thing around here." Susan asked if they really worshipped Satan and if it wasn't for show. Garnet told her, "Hell no. They really mean business. Of course, they put on a pretty good show, too. It's good show business. And that's what I need right now. Something to get us in front of the other clubs. We could be the hottest thing on the strip." Susan agreed to go to the LaVey house, telling him, "All right, Mr. Garnet, but only because I need the job. And I don't go for this Satan stuff." To which Garnet replied, "Neither do I, but business is business." When Susan and the others arrived at the Black House, as LaVey's house was called, she recalled that it was entirely black, including the curtains. Garnet noticed that the lawn was nothing but weeds and dirt, and Susan wrote in her book that nothing of any beauty seemed to be growing around the two-story black monster. One of the other dancer girls commented on how it was a place for Halloween. Surprisingly, Susan wrote in her book that she was nervous about going into the LaVey household, quote, "actually shaking." Anton was the one to answer the door, and Susan wrote that he was all in black, his powdery white skin glowing. She went on to say, "I felt sick at my stomach as I walked past him. His smile was sickly, I thought. Then I froze in my steps. Straight ahead at the far end of the entrance hall was a human skeleton in a glass case. It seemed to have the same sickly smile as LaVey. This is all the horror movies rolled into one. What am I doing here? I wonder if I'll get out of here in one piece." "Please, come right into the living room," LaVey said with refined politeness. His manners were exaggeratedly excellent. Susan went on to say how LaVey's house scared her and had taxidermied animals which she felt were all looking at her. LaVey and Garnet started talking about the witches' Sabbath, which was to be partially based on the maypole ritual. At this point, Anton's wife showed at the top of the stairs, who, for some reason, Susan recalled in her book as having black hair. By this time, Anton's wife or partner would have been Diane, who was a blonde. Diane invited the girls into the kitchen with her, and Garnet encouraged the girls to go. Susan claimed that she was scared and apparently stated, "I'm afraid I won't be able to stay, Mr. LaVey. I hope you won't be offended, but I don't believe in the devil, and—" Anton interrupted her with a wave of the hand and a smile across his face, stating, "But, Sharon, we don't believe in God either, but that doesn't mean he isn't real." The girls went into the kitchen, and Susan recalled seeing a lion in the yard, who was surely Anton's companion, Tagar. Susan wrote, "He was huge and rather mangy looking, but he gave a loud roar as he saw us enter the room." "That's too much," I said, only barely audibly. "What kind of place is this?" I added under my breath. I backed out of the kitchen and retreated to the living room. "Mr. LaVey," I interrupted, "I'd like for you to excuse me, please. I'm not feeling too well." I turned to Garnet. "Mr. Garnet, I think I'd better leave now. I'll be your vampire and witch, but I must be going now." "Sharon." LaVey's voice was gentle, but his smile was still strange. "You've only just arrived. Won't you please stay? I'm holding services this evening. There will be special secret rites, and I'm sure you would enjoy it. It isn't often that I invite an outside guest to these rites." "No, thank you, Mr. LaVey. I hope you won't be offended, but I was raised to worship God, not the devil. I must leave now." Garnet then realized what was going on and told Susan to take the car and that the rest of the group would take a cab back. Before leaving, she told Garnet, "I'm sorry, Mr. Garnet, but my imagination must have been working overtime. I have visions of somehow being sacrificed and all that. Besides, I'm tired and need to go to bed early tonight." Susan then wrote that she looked back at the scary black house, unsure if she'd be able to go through with LaVey's plans. But then again, what other course did I have, as she wrote. Susan's book then fast-forwards to the performance itself, where she admitted to dropping acid and not wanting to get out of the casket even 5 minutes after curtain call. She stated that she remembered very little of the show, though remembered the audience being shaken by the reality of her performance after she had risen from the casket and pointed a long, blood-red fingernail at the audience, marking them as her next victims. The boyfriend that Susan had at the time supposedly didn't like the road that she was going down. 4 months after the show, she ended up in the hospital half dead from gonorrhea, having had a complete physical breakdown. Anton LaVey isn't mentioned again beyond this point in the book. Now, from the Church of Satan's perspective, Susan Atkins was recalled as just another Haight Street burnout, perhaps a bit more drug befuddled than some. In The Secret Life of a Satanist, Anton is quoted as having said, "She'd beg off rehearsals, saying she had a fever of 108 degrees. But in the end, she made a fine vampire." The Church of Satan does little more to officially explain the connection between Susan Atkins and the church. Presumably, there is nothing more to say. Interestingly, though, in the book Charles Manson Now, Anton's grandson, Stanton LaVey, asserted that Susan Atkins, Bobby Beausoleil, and Charles Manson all had a bigger role in the founding of the Church of Satan. For whatever reason, Stanton believed that Susan had a larger role as a founding member of the Church of Satan, supposedly participating in the Topless Witches Review around 1966 as a publicity photo model on call for nude photo shoots. Allegedly, between 1966 and 1968, she was featured in at least a dozen different men's magazines, pictured alongside Anton in the ritual chamber of the Black House. Stanton went on to say that Susan Atkins was the church's spokesmodel, and Bobby Beausoleil, Kenneth Anger, Anton LaVey, and Charles Manson were its founders. Keep in mind, though, that the Church of Satan was founded, as according to the church, on Walpurgisnacht, 1966, or April 30th, 1966. Charles Manson was still locked up during this time, and he wasn't released on parole until 1967. So Stanton's timeline doesn't add up. What is interesting, though, is that Anton LaVey noticeably hated hippies. This was noted in The Secret Life of a Satanist, where he coincidentally even performed a hippie ritual on August 8th, 1969, where he bitterly cursed the psychedelic vermin infesting the world. The book stated that he called for a purge to relegate the slaves to the pens in which they belong, catalyzing a new era of satanic awareness. The next day, the participants of the hippie ritual read about the horrors discovered in the Benedict Canyon home of Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. Whether or not Susan Atkins had a larger role or spent more time around the Church of Satan can't seem to be proven. And from what I've seen, I don't recall Susan Atkins ever bringing up Anton LaVey or the Church of Satan in any of her parole transcripts either. At least, not that I was able to search through. Though, knowing what we do know about Susan Atkins, some might say that Anton's hatred for hippies may have been justified.